Mark Salyers, how's your life?
My life is just dandy.
Really?
Or as I always say, I say to people at the store, but they're like, how are you? I'm like, do you want the truth or do you want a really good lie? It is good. I mean, I can't complain. Like I said, the other line I always use is, I can't complain. It doesn't do any good anyway. And someone said, I used it today, and someone's like, but it gets it off your chest. Life is good. I mean, I work from home. I've been working from home since 2007. Mm-hmm. So when people are like, oh, you work from home, thinking it's a COVID thing. No, I worked from home when we were in Chicago. And now we're, lovely Hooterville.
Which is where you and I met in 1989. And the night I met you, I walked into there was like one gay bar in South Bend, the Seahorse.
Seahorse, also known as the Sea Hag. But
yeah. And that's where I met you. But let me ask you this. You moved back to South Bend. It almost sounds like a novel. Who leaves Chicago for South Bend? Why did you do that?
After 25 years. Well, the story here is twofold. First one, the apartment that Chris and I lived in, we had been in that apartment for 13 years. Loved that place. Oddly, it's got the same square footage as this whole house, which is really kind of crazy, on one floor, which is lovely. But they were rehabbing, and I'm using that very loosely. They're going to rehab the apartments. That building was built in the 20s, like this house. They were going to rehab it. And when I say rehab, tear out all of the original oak trim, doors, woodwork, and replace it with cheap pine, just to kind of give it a fresh new look. And take one of the many closets and put a washer and dryer in. Well, we would have had to have moved out, found a place to live, put all of our stuff in storage, and then when they were done renovating our apartment, we could move back in to a $500 increase. We just like $2,500 is ridiculous for the exact same space just because they're putting in a washer and dryer. Big deal.
Right.
We were on the first floor. We had a washer and dryer in the basement. No big deal. So, and because my sainted mother was getting up there, we decided to suck it up and move back here.
But most people go the other way. Do you miss Chicago? Anything you regret about the move back to South Bend?
It's kind of an afterthought because Chris and I were happy. And, he moved to Chicago for me from Orlando. Mm-hmm. And so all of my friends were his friends. He didn't have his own group of friends. He had my friends, but some closer than others. They would go out we're going out. Fine. Have a nice day. But we gave them all up to move here. And that's the hardest thing. Because when Chris was here, life was grand. We didn't need anybody else. And I would travel to Chicago on occasion to see, or they would come here. Mm-hmm. And after, when he died, now I'm alone. I've got no friends. I've got nobody I can say, hey, let's go grab a drink. I can, my neighbors. And if you look, there's always a cocktail involved. But other than that, there's nobody I can hang. There's nobody. And everybody's like, oh, you've got so many friends there. And I'm like, that are all now married with kids, with grandkids. They don't want anything to do with me, except for a hi, how are you?
What's that like at the age of, you're 61.
No, 60. Don't age me. I'm old enough. 60.
Okay, you're 60. What's that like for a 60-year-old man? I'm 59. To be looking at this part of our lives, what's it like for you?
It's sad. Because it's like being a social butterfly, which I always have been, and with your wings clipped. Half my wings clipped. I can only go in a circle. I'm here in this house. One of my friends called it a very beautiful prison. And it's true. I'm the only inmate in a very beautiful prison.
This surprises me because you are the most outgoing person I've ever met. That's how we met in 1989.
What did they used to call me? The welcome wagon. Wasn't that my nickname? The welcome wagon?
Well, that used to call me Adama Shlava. I mean,
I still do, actually.
Yeah. But to hear you say your wings are clipped, that makes me a little sad because I've always known you to be this kind of joyous, when I hear self-help gurus say, stay in the moment and accept life, you are who comes to mind.
I I still have to, it's like that Marie Kondo. Is that her name? That woman. If you hold it and it brings you joy, you hang on to it. Don't get me started with her. I don't like her because, as you can see, I got a lot of things I hang on to.
Yes.
But you have to find your own happy and my own. I can't say I'm miserable. I just don't have anybody to talk to in the way I used to be able to talk to Chris.
Yeah.
Because we were together for so long that I would just bounce stuff off of him, especially right now, like with work and what's going on with that. I needed his input. And I'm like, I still talk to him because I'm kind of crazy that way, but I don't get the answers I'm looking for. It just falls into dead air. So I'm kind of on my own in that aspect. I still find joy in things, not as much as I used to. A lot of it just doesn't matter anymore. Because it's sort of, I want to say it's sort of, his death sort of was traumatic to me. I was traumatized, like PTSD trauma. I'm like, nothing made sense anymore. I could care less. I'm like, I'm still here. All the stuff is here. And somebody's like, well, what happens if you die? I'm like, then I'll be dead. What do I do? So this is all going to belong to somebody else. It belonged to somebody else before me. So, I don't have the corner on that.
It, I remember when you were going through his illness and then his death.
It was so short. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're very open about it. So take us back. How did it all develop? And then share with me how you got through this.
Um, this started with COVID. Um, Everybody was getting the COVID shots, obviously. This is what we were told to do. We went and got a COVID shot. Well, both Chris and I were immunocompromised, HIV for lack of a better phrase. And we both got the first shot, and he started acting a little odd, but we just thought, oh, it's just a reaction to the shot. And so then we had to wait for the second shot, and we got the second shot. And then he started sleeping, taking naps, and he never took naps. I was a napper. He would never take naps. And the naps were getting longer and longer and longer. And he wasn't eating as much as he used to. We were both sort of on diets during COVID because we had both gotten so big. But by him starting to not feel good, I stopped eating as well, as cooking the way I used to cook, I should say. And it got to the point where we called our PCP, and his answer, I kept telling him, this is not normal. Something's wrong. And his answer was, tell him to drink a boost and take a nap. Drink a boost for protein, take a nap. I'm like, he's already taking naps. That's not the thing. He's not a nap taker. Something's wrong. And then April was when this all started. Now, we got our last shots in March. So that's how fast it hit him. He started just doing basically nothing but sleeping. And then we had to go to Chicago for a follow-up for his eyes. He had to go get his eyes redone. And I looked at him in the bathroom. I'm like, you're gray. Your color is horrible. What's going on? And he's like, oh, I do look kind of funny, don't I? I'm like, yeah. So we went to Chicago, and I always drove him. Gave me a day off and got to go to the big city. His doctor is like, your color is really bad. Are you okay? And Chris is like, well, I don't know. So came back, and then one afternoon, he's like, I just feel so bad. I don't know what's going on. I can barely even move. And I called our PCP. I said, so what's going on? And he said, get him to the emergency room. Checked him in. It was the last time he ever walked. They checked him in immediately. His hemoglobin was like 2. They were doing blood tests, and he was bleeding internally, and they couldn't find out where it was coming from. So he was in the hospital for a week, and they couldn't get it up. And finally, they're like, oh, there's nothing more we can do for you. We're going to send you home. And when they sent him home, he couldn't walk anymore. I don't know why he couldn't walk, but he couldn't walk. So I went to full Nurse Ratched thankfully, my neighbors, Kim and Tommy, I showed you pictures of those two. Tommy was a sheriff at the time, and also, so he knows how to throw somebody over his shoulder. Big guy, and helped me get Chris in the house because we've got steps and we're not walker and wheelchair friendly here. So got him in the house, put him on the couch, and that's pretty much where he stayed. A week or two later, he started acting funny and didn't feel good again. So we had to get an ambulance to take him in. The ambulance driver, or the doctor, the emergency room doctor, and this was like midnight, was our very first PCP when we moved here. So Chris just said, "Don't sugarcoat it, doc. Tell me what the hell's going on." He's like, "You've got cancer."
Wow.
And it's been very aggressive. And they did every sort of biopsy imaginable, and it was isolated to his liver. So we took him to Goshen Cancer Center, and they said, "Well, his liver is shot." I said, "Well, can't he get a transplant?" And like, "No, because he's also HIV, so he didn't qualify for a liver transplant. And liver is the only organ that'll regenerate itself. There wasn't enough of it to save." So ultimately, when we ended up at the doctor at the emergency room doc, Chris is like, "Don't bullshit me. Tell me the truth. Tell me what's going to happen." And he's like, "Honestly, go home and call hospice. You might make it a week. You might make it 2. Go home and call hospice."
I gotta just, when you were experiencing all of this, and I know you personally, so I know your primary concern is Chris.
Yep.
But do you recall what you were feeling as you're going through this? It almost sounds out of body surreal.
My feelings were just all about taking care of Chris. I had nothing about me, and it's scary. And I should have saved some of those pictures. How much weight I lost taking care of him. I was practically a skeleton by the time he died. I was gone. I had lost so much weight because I was taking care of him. He was my life. I remember being the day that they told us that he was going to die, that he had cancer. One of the oncologists in the hospital said, that's where he was being tested for all the different cancers. And they said, "We'll let you know what we find out." Well, they did it over the phone. They called me and told me that Chris had severe liver cancer and there wasn't going to be much. I just literally fell onto the floor crying, and I crawled in here because Chris was on the couch. That's where he spent his last days before we got the hospice bed. And I just threw my head in his lap. I was just bawling. I'm like, "You've got cancer." And he's like, "I've got cancer." "Okay." And I'm like, "What do you mean, okay?" He was totally fine with it. He's like, "I had a good run." He's like, I won't be happy to leave you. We always planned on going together, like in a car accident. One of my doctors is like, "That's morbid." I'm like, "No, it's just the fact of it is we realized that neither one of us could live without the other." And he said to me, "I'm glad I'm going first, because if you died, I wouldn't know what to do. You did everything here. You cooked, you took care of the house." He's like, "I would not know what to do without you." And I'm like, "Well, that's not very comforting to me." I said, "Because I don't know what I'm going to do without you." He says, "You're strong, you're tough, and you're crafty." He's like, "I believe in you more than you believe in yourself."
But 67 is too young to die. 57 is too young to lose a partner. I mean,
yeah. And this is what I'm still grasping with, because, you're a little too old to go on, go out bar hopping. I mean, there is one bar here. Ooh. It's weird. It's like you're the only game in town now.
and at 60 years old, you and Chris were together 20, how many years?
We were 21 years.
You don't, at 60, is it realistic to look for a relationship, based on the kind, what you've experienced, and build another 20 plus year relationship?
I'll never have that again. I'll never have someone to finish my sentences. I'll never have someone who, if I give him 5 options for dinner, I already know which one he's going to pick. I'll never have that again. It would take a small unadulterated miracle, and you can't replace that. I mean, I took if you want some fun reading, I took all of the posts that I posted right after Chris died, and I called them my Hi Daddy posts. I copied them all out with referenced pictures, and I put it into one big document in chronological order. One of my friends said, you need to put this together in a cohesive manner and publish it because it helped us get through your grief. She's like, it's almost like a manual of your love and your care. And to know that, you're not alone in this. She's like, we really loved reading all of your stories. And it helped us more than you know. And I'm like, wow, I didn't think that it was just me, pouring my heart out.
Well, you still refer to Chris. I think you just had a post the other day on Facebook, Hi Daddy.
Yeah. I do daddy posts, and I post the memories if they're still valid. Some of them are long and valid, but I'll still do it. And usually it was always on the 12th because he died on June 12th.
You've just described, I think, one of the most painful experiences people can go through.
Yeah.
And I think some people perhaps mistake that a good life also might include pain. What does good life mean for you?
He's still with me. He'll always be with me. He's part of me. So in a way, I'm kind of having to have a life for the two of us because his was cut short.
Getting back to this concept of a good life, when I say, good life includes the ups and downs, I learned from a very important person in my life that it's not about aiming for happiness. Happiness comes and happiness goes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's learning how to take the moments as they happen. Because you're like, what's that stupid TV show, The Facts of Life? You take the good, you take the bad.
With Tootie.
With Tootie, yeah. It's true. I mean, I've had my share of shit sandwiches.
What is it about you? Because there's another shit sandwich you were served early in life, but what is it about you that keeps you going?
You have to laugh. And this is what even if I get mad and I'm yelling at someone, they're laughing at me. They're like, you're so damn funny. I'm like, but I'm pissed off. They're like, but you're funny about it. I'm like, okay. So I guess the only thing I can do is because, I never expected to be here this long. So all I can do is laugh. Seriously.
I remember when you told me you were HIV positive.
Yeah. I was,
and 20. You had a cocktail in your hand at the time. It was at what's that club in Chicago where they play the show tunes? Sidetracks. And you were, in my eyes, you were kind of the queen bee of that.
Oh yeah.
But I remember you coming up to me, and you just matter of factly, the way you'd say, "Oh, I just sold some stock and I made some money." That's how you told me, and then you went on. And I've always wondered, what was it like for you when you found out you were HIV positive? I mean, there's a lot of shit sandwiches you've been served in life.
This shit sandwich came with a side of fries, and I'm not kidding you about this. So here's how it all laid out. When I was 21, I was tested. Now, back then, the testing wasn't as good as it is now. It's pretty much a crapshoot.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept testing positive, then negative, then positive, then negative, then positive, then negative. It kept coming up like 3 or 4 times. It came up inconclusive. So I'm like, well, fine. So I was a very good doobie, but when it came down to, brass tacks in the bedroom, I was very cautious, as we all had to be back then.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward many, many, many years. Now I'm in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what was going on. I lost a lot of weight. And I went to this doctor. I went to this new PCP. And we were tested. I was tested again. And this is how he told me. All of a sudden, he's like, he walks in and goes, do you smell fries? I love French fries. Oh, by the way, you're HIV positive. Here's a pamphlet.
We had a friend, I think, I just saw he's in one of the pictures.
David
who
Alexander.
He took his own life.
Yep.
And I can remember the fear of the 1980s with HIV and people. It was a death sentence, and they had those ridiculous ads. Everyone you have sex with, you're having sex with everyone they've ever had sex with. It's like you've had sex with the entire planet if you kiss one person. It was the fear.
The fear. Oh, yeah. The fear was unbelievable. And that's kind of like when I say I didn't expect to be here. Because also on the flip side of that coin, the medications weren't that great.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even go on anything until I was in Chicago.
Where you are at this moment, did you, let's say I'm going to pick out of the air, when you were 30, was this what you thought your life would be?
Oh, God, no. No. It's something I always wanted to fall in love and settle down. I wanted the white picket fence. I wanted the 2 dogs. I wanted
you and me both.
I wanted that. And I figured, well, someday it'll happen. And, well, obviously it did. But when I was 30, it was all about having fun. You see ourselves now and go, oh, what the hell happened? My face is a roadmap of my life. That's the way I look at it. Every line has a story.
Yeah.
I was trying to get rid of these. I'm like, those are your laugh lines. You've earned those. The rest,
You know, when we talk about this concept of the shit sandwiches, you lost your brother.
Yeah.
You lost your father.
My brother died when I was 22. He was 24. We were 2 years apart. Yeah.
And you were close with him.
Yeah. We hated each other growing up because I was always the scapegoat. He did it. No, I didn't. You're grounded. But until we became adults, and that's the saddest thing, we had just started to be really good friends, to get past all the petty bullshit of our childhoods. And we were still, let's face it, we were still kids, 22, 24. We were still babies. But yeah. And then when my father died, we were still in Chicago. I should have taken a picture. I should have added the picture of the last time I saw him. Because everybody looks at me now and goes, oh my God, you look just like him. I'm like, I know, it's scary. Because I do. I look just like him. But he was my confidant. Nature versus nurture. That's what I always say, because my mom and dad got divorced when I was 4. So I only got to see him on holidays and rare summers and stuff. But I grew up just like him. His mannerisms, his talents, his skill, his way to schmooze. That's all him.
Do you ever just marvel at you? That, the strength that you've got and you're capable. I'm going to use the word survive. You said earlier, people laugh at you. I think when I heard you say that, what I think you meant was people laugh with you. I think they might laugh at you too, because you love a good joke.
Probably with more than at. I get enough people laughing at me, but
what is it about you? Do you think there are not a lot of people, Mark, who could keep going with all of this stuff you've been through?
To be honest, I always tell people there's a loaded gun upstairs. And there is. After Chris died, I didn't want to be on this earth anymore, which I'm finding out now is very true for widows who have lost the loves of their lives. I'm in a couple of groups on Facebook that there's some interesting things, and it's funny reading your own story through someone else's voice, which is what I'm reading. A lot of these guys are telling their stories. I'm like, oh my God, that's me, But I've wanted to give up more than anybody could possibly know. It took a few years. The first year after Chris died, blur. I can't tell you. I have no recollection. I see pictures and go, oh, okay. I couldn't bring myself to commit to anything. Example, that fall of 21, my neighbors, Kim and Tommy across the street, they're the other reasons. They've saved me. They saved me from saying hello to Chris a little bit sooner than I anticipate. They took me to the Garth Brooks concert. Well, I'm in a stadium, Notre Dame Stadium, right? Full of people. And all of a sudden, something in me snapped. It was probably the first time I had been in honored a commitment, not saying, oh, no, I don't want to go. No, I don't want to go. No, thanks for the invite. No, I can't. I'll just stay home. Very first time I had gone out. And so we're in the stadium, great show. And all of a sudden, something in me snapped. And I walked to the bathroom and then walked the 4.5 miles home. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I cried all the way home, and not because I was wearing brand new cowboy boots. My feet hurt. No, I was just a mess, and it took years. That's the only thing from the first year that I remember. Just absolute blur. I was basically in survival mode. Just get through today, get through the next day. And every night I talk to Chris, and to this day I still do. I say, Daddy, I'm trying. It's the best I can do.
Given what you've experienced, what advice would you have first for people who might lose the love of their life? And then I am curious, what advice would you have for the people who are now in their 20s about what to expect going forward?
Losing the love of your life is devastating beyond any possible imagination. No one can understand. There are no words to help anybody else understand what you go through. The deeper the love, the harder the scar. That's the way I look at it. We were together 21 years, and we were only ever apart a total of 3 weeks days total in 21 years. That's a long time to be together. I guess the most important thing is to be kind to yourself. Because I've years to this day, every once in a while, the shoulda, coulda, woulda. I should have done this differently. I could have done this differently. What could I have done differently? And the answer is nothing. I did what I knew how to do. Even one of the nurses is like, oh my God, your care of him is spectacular. She's like, she's like, you should really be a nurse. I'm like, too much sick.
Well, so what would you say to the younger generation, though, about what to expect?
Number one, my biggest thing is I didn't have ups and downs. We had a very even-keeled relationship. But what I would say to somebody is, don't bail at the first wave. Don't say, that's it, it's over. That's why I had so many first dates. I was looking, and if you don't know somebody well enough, how are you going to know if you could spend the rest of your life with them? And stay off the damn phone. That's my thing. I mean, so many people are addicted to their devices. We all are, let's face it. But back, when we were kids, when we were out there having fun, they didn't exist. We had to physically meet people, But if I saw a couple today, funny, true story, at the antique store where I bought the glass thing that I broke. They were so cute. They were in their 20s, and they were just adorable together. And I saw Chris and I. They were way younger than we were at the time, but still, they were so cute together. And I really wanted to say, love each other for as long as you can. Smile, laugh it out. Don't go to bed mad, because it's pointless. And the old sappy adage, tomorrow isn't promised, because it's not.
What is the thing within you that you value most?
I'm a nice person. I'm a kind person. I think I'm funny as shit sometimes. I crack myself up. And I like to spread a little bit of that around. But yeah. I try to, I don't want anybody to experience what I've experienced, be it good, bad, or indifferent. I try to make, and it's the whole thing, make your world a little bit better place. I do what I can. If I can get a smile out of somebody, my day's golden. If I can make somebody laugh, all the better. I guess my value is just to look after people the way I would like to be looked after. The way I looked after Chris.